Hello viewers, CBGT here. Welcome back to another Gran Turismo Sport video where we're going to take a look at the new Sardegna circuit. You've probably heard about it by now. Probably heard it 5 billion times. Well, here's the 5 billionth and first time you're going to hear about it. So, 6th on the grid obviously, settling into my native position. Now this was my very first race around this track, and let me tell you, it was a bit messy. And when I say a bit, I mean extremely. So, here we go then. First race of the week for me, for most of these people. No one knows what they're doing. Everyone's a noob. No one knows the track. No one knows the car. No one knows the strategy. Away from the grid we go. Let's see what happens. From 6th, let's see if we can move forward or will we move backwards. Down into turn 1, and there's chaos already. As plenty of punting occurs. And the Brit Assaultinator gets assaulted at turn 1. I think he was on the front row of the grid, and now he's definitely on the last row of the grid. So we go down to 8th, courtesy of a couple of misdemeanors through the first corners, and eventually get back up into 7th. This is the fast, fearsome corner. You can see that really does claim many victims. Back up into 5th. And I'm just going to smash into the back of Kieran, just destroy him and push him wide, get a 5-second penalty. And this was really very typical of this race. Lots of carnage, as people don't really know their braking points, myself included, obviously. 5-second penalty served, down to 16th, back to 14th by this point. This guy getting pushed wide. That was a choke point, that really was. That final hairpin there. Lots of misdemeanors there. On the way in, on the way out, on the way through, you name it, it happened. And this is where my second criminal activity of the day occurred, down into turn 1.
Stop right there, criminal scum! Nobody breaks the law on my watch!
I was so bad, I was committing so many felonies, and even the Skyrim or Oblivion guards came after me. Serving another penalty, a big theme of this race, serving penalties, committing crime, etc, etc, losing another handful of positions, down to 16th again. Oh my god, another yellow flag though. This was really characterised, this race, by yellow flags and penalties, as we have a Russian going very slow, Vitaly Crash, quite suitably named. A little bit later on in the lap, you know, you don't really have to always take people out yourself, just let other people do it. So nice little smash off there, again at the hairpin. So we move up another 2 positions. Up against the Bulgarian now, into the slipstream. Which side is he going to go? He's not going to cover the inside. The slipstream is really strong in these cars, so you definitely have to make the most of that. And I'm just going to go up the inside, squeeze my way through with quite a forceful move, quite rude, but just about fair, I think. And coming through this corner alongside the pole, we get through back into 11th, so there's potential here to try and recover some positions. As I say, first race of the new week for me, at least, back on Monday, and I don't think most people know what they're doing, myself included, but you always have to try and adapt as quickly as possible, and adapt as quickly as possible to getting acquainted with that brick wall there, as we get shoved wide for no reason other than the guy just braked too late, obviously. And he slowed down on his own. I guess he was very guilty about that. So, moving down a couple of positions, back down to 13, back to 12. This guy wipes himself out, up to 9th. So not too bad a recovery, going down to 16th twice. But then this moment here happened, and just got the power a little bit too early. As I shifted up to 2nd, completely lost control of the car, and lost control of 9th place, unfortunately. Now, someone who's showing me up massively here is IOF Racing 27. You can see him on the top left of the screen, number 1, and he actually started 19th. He started last, near enough, as close to the back as doesn't really matter really. And he's gone through the pack to presumably win this race, which is just absolutely ridiculous. He's just dicking on everyone, making it look very easy. He is one of the world's best players, if not the world's best player, so no surprises at all. We come across the line eventually in a disappointing 11th in what was a very chaotic SR killing race. So unfortunately 51 seconds behind Igor Fraga in the end. So here's my qualifying lap. I'll show you a couple of tips. I'm not as quick as some people obviously, but I can give you some tips. 100 board, just braking just after they use a bit of the blue AstroTurf on the right hand side. I got a little bit of a slide too much there, so you do have to be careful of that. My first sector in this lap wasn't the best, but it is my fastest lap. Braking just before that, the start of the gravel. And again, don't quite meet the apex. Obviously meet these apex. You see I meet the apex there and do catch up with the goes and just run a little bit wide. So don't run wide obviously. Braking just after the 50. Fourth gear is good here. I don't think you need to go down to third. It unsettles the car on the way out. You see I gain on the ghost again. So fourth gear through that turn is good. Obviously hooking up with the apex as much as possible. Looking for the 100 board, which is the third board here. Just braking just underneath it. Down into first gear. Second gear is good in the race to preserve the tyres a little bit, but first is good with a quick upshift to second coming out of the slow hairpins. So through this section here, very difficult indeed, but this corner, this left-hander is flat out. You do have to be very committed and very brave. Braking just before the 100 board this time, as this is a slightly sharp corner, hooked up nicely with a late apex. First gear, quick upshift to second, and then away we go. You can save a little bit of time here by just keeping slightly to the right and not going fully out to the left, and ultimately that is just going to be a 123.5 or 9.5, sorry. So practicing the start here. In terms of starting for this race, you want to just mash the throttle and get into 1 TCS and then take it out of 1 TCS. By the time you get to second or third gear, second gear ideally, take it out of 1 TCS, put it back down to 0. And obviously it's just a matter of reacting quickly to the lights by taking your foot off the brake. So we're going to try to do that here. How can we go for the second time around? Away we go. The guy from third, not getting a good launch, up into third immediately then. Down to 0 TCS as we go up into third position, into corner 1, covering the inside line as we just get the space to do so. And we're not going to get involved in World War 3 at turn 1. And we can just pull away slightly here from the pack. So top 2 fighting, can we follow them through? And I was unfortunately using my qualifying braking point there. So you can see I go a little bit wide, and obviously in the race you can't quite brake as late or turn in as sharply as you would in the qualifying. Obviously in qualifying you have absolutely optimal conditions, tyres which don't wear out, and that means you can brake a lot later, you can turn a lot sharper. So you do have to be a bit more careful in the race in those respects. So this guy going very defensive, and I have to go the long way round, which is obviously isn't going to work. Try and keep the position against the Brit who's trying to overtake me from behind. Already losing a lot of time to the top 2 as you come through this sweeping section. And you do have to watch out. When you're right behind someone like this, you do begin to lose a bit of downforce coming through those fast sweeping corners. So you do have to be very, very mindful of that. Often you have to lift off through that fast sweeping left-hander. If you're on your own, it's okay. But when you're right behind someone, it's very, very difficult to go through there flat out. So that's the end of lap 1. Started 4th, ending at 4th. But we have a shot of going for the lead of LMP2 category, as the top 2 have already just bolted and might not ever see them again. So down into turn 1, goes a little bit deep as we go for the cutback and get the job done. Back into third position. Let's try and consolidate this position now and try and pull away from the Italian. Get our braking point better this time. But trying to preserve too much line or wider entry for the right-hander. And to be fair, the Italian just dives up the inside with a very good move and retakes third position. So he seems quite intent on defending, does this guy, and unfortunately that means we're going to lose time all the time against the top guys. We're already 4 seconds off the lead, which is a massive gap after 1.5 laps, and he's gone full defensive mode basically. Here you see him all the way to the left on the left-hander. This guy quite committed to defend, which is very annoying to be behind, but he's well within his rights to do it. So you just have to kind of be mindful of that and perhaps try to go for a move as soon as possible and then not make a mistake as soon as you are through. And just braking before that 100 board. I think it's very tempting to try to brake later, but that is a corner you do really need to get on the brakes right at the right time. Something I noticed around here, especially for the sharper corners, the closer you get to the apex, it really matters how close you get to the apex. You really do have to get hooked up. You lose a lot of time by not being on the apex, especially through the hairpins. So it really does pay to get on the brakes at exactly the right moment. This time around, he doesn't make the same mistake as he gets on the brake pedal at exactly the right moment, covers the inside line, and there's no switchback opportunity this time. So still just trying to follow him the best I can, and perhaps go for a move at the next corner, or the corner after. So this corner, you kind of need to set yourself up, get in slipstream range, and you can go for a move potentially up into the hairpin at the end of this straight here. The slipstream is really strong in these cars, very, very strong indeed. You can gain at least 2 tenths normally on each straight, just by being very, very close behind. And you can see here, that just shows you just how dangerous that curve is, as you just tag 2 wheels on the edge of it, and it just auto spins you pretty much. So you've got to be very, very careful not to get your wheels right on the edge of the curb, as it can easily send you facing the wrong way. So down to 5th, a little bit disappointing, as I could really easily be in 3rd, but at least 3rd isn't too far away. You can try to fight back through the pack here. So the strategy really is to short shift and save time in the pit stop. It's kind of a common strategy now in Gran Turismo Sport, so you might be wondering why I'm shifting a lot of the time just halfway up the rev gauge. That's kind of all you need, or a little bit past the halfway mark on the rev gauge, but you can save quite a lot of fuel. I've been using normally about 9% per lap, so just measuring or just looking at the fuel marker HUD every lap and just measuring roughly 9% per lap. I'm really unsure how much these guys are using. Obviously we'll find out in the pit stop. We have this guy on the inside trying to find our way around the outside, and to be fair to him, he doesn't run me out of space. Gave me the room on the outside, and that's going to give me the invitation then to go up the inside, back through this right hand, a couple of right-handers, back up into 4th. So now we can turn our attention to trying to catch up with the Italian once again, who's now got out of slipstream range, which is I suppose the equivalent of DRS range in F1, as we then come up the main straight and end lap number 5. So no one pitting just yet. We're going to have to wait for that. So we're going to see if anyone's going to pit at the end of lap 6. No, not quite. I do prefer to go to the end of lap 7. I think that is the slightly better strategy. So the leader goes in, and actually there was a spinner. The Swiss guy who was up in the lead actually span out, so we went up into 3rd actually, in now a fight for 2nd. So into the pits we go. Decent amount of fuel saved, 38% on the left hand side. So we need to leave 6 laps remaining, roughly 9% per lap. We leave with 54%, and that should see us through to the end. Still need a bit more fuel saving from here to the end, but obviously as the car gets lighter, it does save fuel a little bit better, so you can afford to use a tiny bit more of the revs in this second half of the race. But the interesting thing here is to see how the Italian does, because I was trying to catch up with him at the end of that stint, and now he didn't actually pit at all, which is quite surprising. I don't know what strategy he's doing, but he can't do a nose stop unless you go into lean mix 6 and short shift the crap out of the car for the entire race, but that is not going to be quicker, pretty sure. So he's 22 seconds ahead of me. This is my opportunity to try to jump him. I was only about 1.5 seconds away, and you can easily gain that because of how bad the tyres get by the end of the stint. The tyres, honestly, they get absolutely torn to shreds, and it's very easy to spin out at the end of each stint. Using brake bias all the way to the front, which helps a tiny bit but not too much. Actually, he has pitted, so the Italian into the pit lane, and quite surprisingly he was on medium tyres. That might explain why he was a little bit on the back foot. He still kept a decent pace though, given that he was on mediums and I was on softs. 18% fuel though, I don't think that's a very good amount of fuel that he saved, so he must have been revving the car quite a lot. That probably explains why our speed was about the same. He had the worst tyres, but he was revving out a little bit more. And ultimately, that's going to hand me a 5.5 second advantage. So you can just see there how much importance the fuel saving has, as now I'm 6 seconds ahead of a guy that I was 1.5 seconds behind. a couple of laps ago. And ultimately that was the race decided in the pit lane and through strategy, through fuel saving, as Savasic comes through to win by 14 seconds. He was quite a long way ahead, and the Italian comes through fourth, and I'm going to finish in second, so not too bad a result. Actually a pretty good result, starting fourth. Always good to move forwards. Probably wasn't going to win this one, but to finish second, I'll quite happily take that. That's the end of the video. Let me know your thoughts. I do hope you enjoyed it as always. Thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to follow me on Twitter, Instagram for more beautiful Super GT content. And thank you again to all my patrons and members. I'll see you next time, everyone. Thank you so much for watching. Have a nice day. Goodbye.